Hello everybody. Welcome to Home Savvy Central. The question is today, are you ready to make money in the long term without doing much work? And that involves buying a rental property. But let's give a few seconds for viewers to come in. All right. Well, we have an exciting program. I'm very excited about it. This is a topic that's very dear to me. I've sold a lot of rental properties. Rental properties are income properties that you buy for long-term and passive income. So if you're working, if you own a house, or if you don't own a house, but you don't want to live in a house and you want to rent, you can buy a rental property. There's a lot of advantages. So let's take a look at some before I get started. The most important thing I'm going to give you today is give you a step-by-step process on how to buy a rental property. I have gone on the internet, I've gone on social media, I've taken the experiences from the homes that I've sold, many homes, rentals, including duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes that I've sold, and taken some easy process to streamline a process that I can talk within an hour in this live broadcast, so you can do the same thing if you are wanting to buy something. But before I do that, I want to talk about why and what are the advantages of buying a rental property. So let's go there. I'm going to share a screen with you and then let's talk about it. So I'm going to share the screen and go to our website and just kind of give you a brief outline. Let me see if you can see the screen here. There you go. So is rental property a good investment in 2024? Everything to know. Of course, this is 2025, but I found this article. As I said, I scoured the internet for some processes. So I'm just going to briefly touch on what this article says. What are the potential rewards in the real estate market in 2025? I'm going to call it a 2025 because things don't change when it comes to long-term investments. So the first thing is rental homes can be a hedge against inflation. I'm not going to talk about too much details on the details or the benefits because my focus is on the process of buying a rental property. But at least if you're thinking about buying a rental property, if you're not sure what are the advantages, disadvantages, at least you know why you want to buy a rental property when you are ready. Could be today, could be 2 months down the road, could be 2 years down the road. So this will give you, my process will show you how to do that. Property values have a history of increasing after economic downturns. That means they never go down in the long term. Single family homes are less volatile than stock market. Won't get into details. I own stocks, I own rental property. They're both good, but today our focus is on rental properties. Low affordability is fueling rental demand. Even as house prices slow across many markets, they're far from affordable for many Americans. But I will show you how you can buy even with low down payment and adjustable interest rates if that's the case that you have to do. Rental expenses can come with tax write-offs and benefits. Most wealthy people, of course, they buy real estate because it appreciates and it gives you depreciation, but a lot of them buy it for tax purposes, which is a huge savings, which an average investor does not even think about. So we will talk about that as well. Technology is making it easier than ever to manage a rental property. So I just want to see if there's anybody there and making a comment. So I want to keep track of that. Then let's talk about what are the potential risks in the real estate market in 2025? Well, it's 2025. So not all real estate investments create passive income. And we'll talk about when you buy something, you want to make sure that your mortgage payments are the same as your rental income. So that's when your interest rate and how much down you put in comes in. Low inventory is making it more difficult to find a good investment options, which is true right now in 2025. Interest rates are tipped to remain high. Yes, but people are buying rental properties. I've sold rental properties with 10%, 12% interest rate, and I've sold rental properties with 3% interest rate. So it works in any market because when the rates drop, you can always refinance. Rental growth has slowed and many decline in some areas, but overall, if you look at the long term, it always goes up. And then the maintenance costs are heavily inflated. Everything costs money: labor cost, nails cost, goods cost, 2x4s, paint, all has gotten expensive. So it is just expensive to maintain. But I don't want to talk about negative things about investing. I want to talk about positive things. There's still a threat of economic downturn in 2024. Well, it's 2025. We haven't seen any. So let's move along. I'm going to not share this anymore and have some questions. And by the way, I'm going to refer to some notes that I've made so I keep this conversation in streamline and make sure I'm done within an hour and not take too much time. So the question is, drop a yes in the chat if you're looking to buy your first rental in 2025 or 2026. Let us know. And if you have any specific questions, I'll be glad to answer them. If you're watching this as a recording, a lot of my viewers watch this as a recording. And if you have any questions, any comments, make those comments and I'll be glad to answer those personally. Now, I mentioned to you earlier from the article why investing in real estate is important, whether it's 2025 with high interest rates are relative, or you want to buy in the future. Real estate is one of the most powerful ways to generate wealth, leverage tax benefits, and create passive income. So I'll give you my example. I bought a rental in 2004. I could barely afford to buy, but I bought a rental property. And one of the biggest mistakes I ever made is I sold it after a couple of years. I should have kept it, but the prices went up. I got excited. I thought, oh my, in 2 years, I'm going to make a lot of money. So I sold it. If I would have kept that property today, I would have made 4 or 5 times what I made back in 2004. So I regret doing it, but I have personal experience owning rental properties. I bought and sold many properties, and I currently own rental properties as well. So I understand the reasonings, the tax advantages, the cost the cost it takes to run a rental property, the headaches comes with it. Sometimes the tenants may call you at night and say, hey, the toilet's not working or this is not working, and you have to deal with it. If you have a property manager, and we recommend having property managers once you have 2 or 3 or 4 or so properties, then you don't have to worry about those property management. So today I'll walk you through the step-by-step process of buying your first rental property, answering your questions along the way. So feel free to make comments and I'll keep track of when a comment comes in. So let's talk about the first step is preparing your down payment and financing. First of all, depending on where you are and how much money you have and how much you can qualify, that's the first step. So investment properties typically require 15 to 20% down. Yes, you can buy with a 10% down, but in Southern California, right now I'm showing to 2 of my buyers rental properties, and I am having them put down 30 to 40% down. Otherwise, they will not break even. Southern California is a whole new animal. So it takes a lot to put a down payment. But in some other states, and I'm not sure where, but where there's low income, lower prices, and the rents are higher and there's a big demand for rentals, you may be able to put less down payment. So the first step is put down payment as much as you can. Let me show you a slide. Is down payment and financing options. You can get a conventional loan with a 20% down, which is highly recommended, because when you put a 20% down, you do not have to, you do not have to pay private mortgage insurance. So that way you save another $100, $200, $300, $400 a month on PMI, depending on what your loan amount is. The second way to buy are with FHA loans, but the FHA loan is a government loan with 3.5% down. Most of the time, they require that this property be an owner-occupied property, but after a year or so, maybe 2 years, after living in there for 1 year or 2 years, you can sell it, or you can rent it out as an income property, and then you can buy something else later on when you have more down payment, etc. Then there are these DSCR loans. These are mostly loans with 0% down payment with grants and in rural areas. So I'm not going to talk about that because I'm in Southern California and we don't have that. I've never done a DSCR loan, but they are available out there. And of course, there are sellers that will sell you the property and they will carry the loan. If it's all paid off, A seller may do a seller financing where the seller acts like a bank. You don't have to go and qualify. Usually these comes with a cost, and the cost is usually they want you to put a lot of down payment to make sure that you have skin in the game. So when you do put a big down payment, they'll carry the loan for you. 4% down, 5% down, 6% down, 10%. I mean, interest rate, 4%, 5%, 6%. It's all negotiable. So that is possible if you are one of those buyers that have the down payment, but have some dings on your credit or are unable to qualify for a loan because you're a business owner and your tax record don't show the actual income because they're because of whatever reason. Then you can do seller financing. And there are a lot of deals that do happen with seller financing, especially when the rates go up to 8%, 9%, 10%. Hopefully they won't get there, but once they get there, you could see those coming back. And I have seen some properties, even in Southern California, I'm in Anaheim Hills, California, where property has come in with seller financing, but typically they ask for a lot of down payment, and typically they ask for a higher price than a normal house for sale because they're doing you a favor by you not going to the bank, and you don't have the underwriting fees and the appraisal fees and the points you have to pay. So it's an advantage for the seller to sell you at a higher price or a higher mortgage rate. But as a buyer, currently, if I cannot buy, then the seller can carry. And then later on, once I have my credit score up to date or my paperwork up to date, I can refinance with a better rate. But I'm able to get in without a bank giving me a loan. So that's something to keep in mind. So let's move on to step number 2, and that is building and optimizing your credit. This is very important because, as we talked about it, to get a rental property, you need to get a great rate. And one way to get a great rate and a great terms and condition is, let me see if there's any comments here. Sorry about that. Is to increase your FICO score. The better your FICO score, the better your interest rate, and the better your terms and conditions that the banks give. A lot of people think it's just FICO score, it's just a rate they want. No, the better your FICO score, if you getting a loan at a 720 FICO score versus the same loan, somebody getting it at a 780 FICO score, you will have different terms and conditions because the person who's buying it at a better score or FICO score seems to be a better candidate. So let's look at credit score breakdown. It talks about the credit utilization. It looks at, are you paying on time or not? This is the lender looking at your FICO score. They look at your length of the credit history that you've had. How long have you had credit cards, or how long have you had your car? How long have you had your other bills, and are you paying them on time? So they look at your history. They look at your credit mix. Do you have credit card bills? Do you have auto bills? Do you have medical bills? Do you have student loans or any other private loans? And they look at the mix to figure out what's the best FICO score for you when the lender's looking at it. And then they also look at how much new credit you've had in the last year or the last 2 or 3 years. Are you paying it off on time? And again, I want to mention as a disclaimer, I'm not a lender, but I'm talking as a realtor. And this is, if you talk to a lender, they'll guide you better. So if you do need a lender or talk to a realtor in your area, do make a comment. I will refer you to a lender or a realtor in your area just for you to get information, just so that you know how bad or how good is your credit. What are the chances of you getting a loan? What are the chances of you getting a rental property in certain areas? And just do your homework. We are here to help you and guide you. And one way we help you and guide you is refer you to top agents and top lenders in your area who know the neighborhood, who know the prices, who knows the local market. So one of the things that's absolutely a must is that if you are thinking of buying, the better your FICO score, just like the more down payment, the lower your payment, mortgage payment is, and the better your FICO score is, the better your credit score is, the better terms and conditions and interest rate you will get. So keep that in mind. Location also matters where you're buying. If your rental property is in a high crime area or a low crime area, do they have good schools? Do they have strong job markets? All these plays into a factor when you're buying a rental property, and the lenders do look at that because they want to make sure that your property stays in good condition, your property is in a good neighborhood, and the neighborhood is going to go up and it's not going to go down, and that your rental will be occupied and rented out, because the lenders want to make sure that you're going to be able to make payments. So little things make a big difference, and if you have not thought about these little things, they play a big factor. So just so that you keep in mind. All right, let's see. Like I said, I'm going to follow this streamlined paperwork that I have, so I stay on course and not sway from the steps that I've made. I have 8 steps. Let's go to step number 3, which I already talked about, and that is talking to lenders and getting pre-approvals. I mentioned to you that I'll refer you to a lender, and I also mentioned to you that if you are thinking about buying, whether it's now or 3 years from now or 4 years from now, talk to a lender and say, hey, I'm going to buy a house in 3 years. I own a house right now. I have a lot of equity, or I don't have any equity, but I want to buy a rental property in 3 years. How much money do I need to make? How much of a home can I buy? What does my credit score need to be? How much down payment do I need? There's a lot of variables. And of course, in 2 years or in 6 months, prices may change, interest rate may change. But when you talk to a lender, he or she is going to give you the current conditions, and let you know that based on these conditions, this is how much down payment you put down. And based on the interest rate, they'll give you a mortgage payment of principal, interest, tax, and insurance based on your income and how much you can qualify for. And then you decide, hey, if my mortgage is $2,000 a month, principal, interest, tax, and insurance, will I get enough rent, at least $2,000 or more, so that I cover my mortgage payment and I'm not late on my payments? So that's something you want to keep in mind. Again, you are just talking to the lender. You're not applying for a loan. You don't have to give them your tax returns and everything. You're just talking to them to gain information on what's going to happen. Now, if you've already talked to a lender and if you have any specific questions, you can ask them those. But if you have any other questions that you want me to answer, feel free to put it down in the comments and I'll be glad to answer them for you. So let's go to step number 4, and that is choosing the right property. That's the key. How do you know which property to choose? First, you have to decide whether you want to buy a house, a single family home, and within that, you have to decide, do you want a condo or do you want a house? You may want to buy a condo because you're not the kind of person that likes to maintain things, especially the garden and the yard and the curb appeal and all that. So maybe a townhouse is a good idea because a lot of the exterior things are already covered. So that's one thing. The other thing you have to decide is, do you want to buy a duplex, which are 2 attached homes or 2 on a lot, or you want to buy a triplex or a fourplex? All these fall into the category of a residential income property. So when you apply for a loan to your lender or a bank, the qualification is the same as like you are buying a house. Now, once you buy 5 units or 6 units or more, it becomes a commercial property and the commercial loan. So everything changes. So we are focusing on single family homes and units up to 4 units, up to 4plex. So that's what we are focusing on. So one of the things that I recommend, and of course that's my personal choice, is that if you buy a townhouse, it's something that may affect your payments, because when you buy a townhouse or even a newer home with association fees, that affects your mortgage payments. So I mentioned earlier that when you rent out, you want to make sure that your mortgage, let's say, which is the principal, interest, tax, and insurance, and I used a $2,000 a month mortgage example, then your rental income should be at least $2,000 a month, so you break even, hopefully more, so you have positive cash flow. But if you have an association on a townhouse, or these days a lot of the new home communities, they have swimming pools and tennis courts and pickleball courts and other rules and regulations. They have HOAs, which is the homeowners association. In Orange County, our average homeowners association for condos is around $300. So now if I was buying a property and my mortgage payment was $2,000 PITI, and now I have HOA of $300, my payment went up to $2,300 a month. That means now I have to find a rental that's going to generate $2,300 a month. So you have to be careful when you buy a townhouse that it's going to cover that. And if it does not cover your principal, interest, tax, insurance, and HOA, you might go at a loss. But some of the rental buys, I've sold a home where the owner was okay with a negative cash flow. He said it's okay if I'm negative HOA, or if I'm negative on the property tax, because he paid property taxes every 6 months. So his calculation, of course, everybody is different, but on his calculation of property tax, he only counted principal, interest, and insurance, and not the taxes, because he makes a lot of money. He was a pharmacist and he was looking for a tax write-off, but he was also looking for appreciation. And I sold him the house, many homes, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And that 300 negative meant nothing to him, because those homes that I sold him and now have gone up 50, 60% in appreciation. So even though he went negative on the cash flow, he knew that the market was going to go up. He knew that he's going to keep these condos and new homes for pretty much a lifetime. And in the long term, he will win. So even though he went negative, which helped him on the tax write-offs, he's still ahead of the game because he has a lot of equity in the homes. And now if he sells it, he'll make a lot of money, and that'll recoup all his negative. But he does not need to do that. He's still going negative on it. Actually, he's not, because the rents have gone up. And I'm assuming he has increased the rents, because once I help him rent out those, I don't keep track of how much rent he's paying. But I'm pretty sure he increases the rent 5-6% every year, because he owns a lot of properties. He has a management company, and I hope that they're guiding him, which I'm sure they are guiding him on that. So wanted to ask you, if you are thinking of buying, what type of property would you buy? Would you buy a single family home? Would you be prefer to buy a duplex, or would you prefer to buy a condo or a new home where there is no maintenance at all? I have some clients, especially the professionals who are doctors and lawyers and accountants. They don't have time for maintenance, so they prefer newer properties, and they would rather pay an association fee, buy a brand new home or a newer home, and not worry about the yard work and the roof work and the pool, because the pool they can use as a community pool. And also the newer homes generally generate more rental income, at least in Southern California where I'm at. They get you more because it's a newer floor plan. In fact, I have a house just going into escrow. It has a next gen home in the house. A next gen room is a brand new home, and a lot of the builders, especially Lennar, are building next gen suites. What it is it's a 5 bedrooms and 4 bath house. It's a 4,000 square feet home listed for $1 million. But downstairs, Lennar, what they did is they built a suite. It's a bedroom with a small living room in the front, and a laundry room and a closet and a small kitchenette area, so that if the teenager or the millennial staying with him, with the parents, they have their own, like a own room with its own entry. So if they want to come at 2 o'clock at night and leave, or if they want to rent it out, they can use this next gen home. So the type of home that you buy matters, and it affects the mortgage income, the rental income that you get. So keep that in mind. And again, talking to a lender, talking to a realtor before you buy gives you a good idea on what you want to buy. And that's assuming that you are not, I'm assuming that you're watching this video, whether it's live or whether it's a recording, that you are a first time rental home buyer. So I'm giving you these ideas. Okay, now the step 6, and assuming now that you've talked to a lender and you decided to buy a house a year ago and now you are ready to buy. Okay, so the step 6, which is now you're ready to buy and you actually want to get pre-approved in today's interest rate, today's mortgage rates, today's prices, and actually get approved and start making offers. You have a realtor, and if you don't, let me know and I'll refer you to a realtor. But if you have a realtor looking for a house or a duplex in your areas, you're going to go hunt for those, search for those, find one that fits your criteria. Number one, do you like the area? Do you like the style? Do you feel comfortable owning such property, whether it's a new property, single story, two stories, a house with a yard or a house with no yards? You want a metro area or a suburban area, or you want near a freeway, or you want something near a railroad station or something near hospital? Whatever your criteria is, you need to get approved and start looking for those properties. And once you start looking for a property, you need to start offering them competitive bids. Of course, as a buyer and an investor, now you quote an investor, you want to buy as low as possible, no matter what the comps are. I mean, of course, you have to be able to buy at a lower cost. So if the homes are selling for $400,000 in your area, you want to buy something at least near 400,000 or lower, so that you have that extra advantage. The lower you buy, the better off. Of course, in this market, I know that in Southern California, we are going through multiple offers right now. Yes, January, mid-January to February right now, we've seen a lot of multiple offers. So homes are selling over list price. So it's really not a good time to buy as a renter, because like I said, you need to put 30-40% down just to break even. But in certain areas, like I hear Texas is slow right now. I hear Florida is also slow right now because of the insurance crisis, homeowners crisis, and the affected by the storms. You may be able to find a great deal, but be careful. Check your insurance and HOA, because you don't want them to jump. But the bottom line is, you want to make competitive offers, but you want to make them so that you can get an offer. The last thing you want to do is you keep writing offers and offers, and you lose out on great deals. So be willing to the excuse me. So be willing to pay the market price, as long as you break even, in the sense when you buying the property, whether you're putting 10% down or 20% down. And if your mortgage is $2,500 a month or $3,000 a month, principal, interest, tax, and insurance, if you want to count taxes in your calculations, some don't and some do, but that's up to you. You want to make sure that at least you're getting a mortgage payment enough to pay your you want to get enough rental income so that you can pay your mortgage. You want it to break even at least. Some people want to put a heavier down payment so they have a positive cash flow every month, but each one is different. That's why talking to a lender and talking to the rent and talking to a realtor is very important, based on your way of buying it. Every buyer has their own specific way of buying a property. Some people want to buy it because they want to sell it in 2 or 3 years. They want to buy an older property, not in a very good condition property, but they want to buy it, fix it up, rent it out, increase the rents, sell it as a rental, because the higher your rent, the better price you get. Rental property, when you buy and sell as a rental property, is based on your income, what we call the gross income of your income, gross multiplier. So on a fourplex, for example, in California, for example, if you have 4 units and if you're getting 2,000 a month rent, which is not possible. I mean, they're all going for 2,000, 3,000 a month. But let's say if you get 2,000 a month and you have 4 units, your income is 8,000 a month, which is 2,000 per year. Then those rental properties are selling for 17, 18 times your gross. So if I can pull out my calculator, 8,000 a month times 12 will give you 96,000. I'm sorry, I said 72,000, but it's 96,000 income. So if it's a fourplex, and if I multiply that by 18, which is the gross rent multiplier, the price comes out to 1.7. This is just an example. So I know in Orange County that if I'm going to buy a fourplex, it's going to cost me around 1.7. And the way I can calculate it is the others in the area are selling for 17 times, 18 times, 19 times, 20 times your GRM, which is the gross rent multiplier. Now, before you buy, you have to factor in, okay, so if I buy this property and increase the rent to, let's say, 2,500 a month, because the older tenants are been paying 2,000 a month and seller didn't care. If you pay 1.7, increase the rent to 2,500 a month, and your mortgage is 7% interest rate at, let's say, 8,000 a month, will you break even? And that's what you have to factor in. Now, remember, you also have management fees and cost. you have your insurance, your taxes, your maintenance. You have some months where your one of the units may be vacant. So there are a lot of factors that fit in, and you have to calculate that. In general, um, your cost is gonna run around 28 to 30% when it comes to management cost and other things. I won't get into those details because I want to stick with the step-by-step process. So once you make offers, and hopefully you have a great agent, your lender has qualified you well, you made a great offer, and your house or your offer gets accepted, maybe the first time or maybe the second time or third time. So once it gets accepted, in California, we call it, we go into escrow. I know in the East Coast, some of you go to the attorneys and you start your paperwork and you start your due diligence period where you want to check the rents, what the city codes are, what the city requirements are. You want to do an inspection on the house, you want to do an appraisal in the house, and start your paperwork, your information, and the inspection is the key. So let's talk about step number 7, which is inspection and due diligence. So let me show you a slide if I can. If I have a slide, I'm going to remove this. Hold on. How do I remove this? Okay. Just give me a minute here. Okay. Okay, let me add another slide here. Oops, not that one. Let me see if I can add this. Okay, inspection priorities for buyers. If you can see the screen. So when you do the inspection, and we highly recommend, even if you're a great handyman or a good contractor or like to do some work, I always recommend that you get a professional inspector. That's all they do. They do 1 or 2 or 3 inspections a day, so they know what they're doing. They'll come into your house, or if it's a fourplex, they'll check everything in the house, your faucets, your running water, your air conditioning, your foundation, your plumbing. They'll check your sockets. They check everything because you want to make sure that when you rent the house out to a tenant, it's different when you buy your own house. When you move into the house, and if the smoke detector is not working, you might say, oh, it's okay. But when there's a tenant, you want to make sure that the smoke detector is working. And I'm just giving you an example. You want to make sure everything is working, because if something happened, if there's a fire, and if the smoke detector was not working, you're liable for it. Of course, you can have insurance for that. But when it comes to renting a property and when it comes to your own property, it's two different things. So you want to be very thorough with the inspection, especially with the fire codes and security codes, etc. So you want to make sure. So first thing you want to do is check on your foundation issues. You want to check the roof condition. You want to make sure that your heating, ventilation, and air conditioning is working, is in proper condition. Your plumbing and electrical is working. And then you have other pest issues. You might have termite in certain areas. Those areas are prone to termites and pests. You want to make sure they're okay. There's no pest in the attic, because the last thing you want is a call from your tenant after you bought and say, hey, there's something crawling around here, or my AC is not working, or it's freezing out there. In California, it doesn't get freezing, but if you're in Boston, I have an agent friend in Boston, and he always complains to me that it's freezing out there. And then when he gets up in the morning, there's snow out, then he has to shove the snow out. So imagine at 2 o'clock at night, it's freezing 20 degrees outside, or even inside, and your heater's not working. If you're the owner yourself, you're going to do something. But when a tenant calls, you better act fast and take care of it, because you don't want something to happen to the tenant, etc. So buying a house as a rental has its advantages and disadvantages. But I just want to throw it out there that if you do buy, let me see here. If you do buy a rental, little things matter. And of course, your realtor or somebody that has bought rental properties will guide you through it. And of course, if you have any specific questions, you're always welcome to email me or text me or put it in the comment. I'll be glad to answer them for you. So, okay, so let's go here. Okay, there you go. Now let's go to the next step. One thing I want to find out, if you bought a rental property and if you ever backed out from the escrow because you found an issue, let us know. What was the problem with it? Was the AC not working, or was there a foundation issue, or was there some issue that you backed out and you were glad that you backed out? So we would like to find out, and others would like to find out. So let's get to step number 8, which is closing the deal and getting your keys. So, of course, at this point, you've done your inspection, you've done the appraisal, you've checked the city's rental laws. Each city is different. Um, rental regulations. Some cities have their own regulations, counties have their own regulations, state have their own regulations. So, what works in California may not work in Montana or Utah. They're different. For example, in Santa Ana, which is about 10 miles from here, city of Santa Ana, they have very strict guidelines when it comes to increasing your rent. I believe it's like 3% maximum. Certain other cities, like other cities, have an average of 5, 6, 7% that you can increase. So there's a lot of rules and regulation that happened 2 or 3 years ago, especially in California after the fires and after the disasters. In fact, there was a fire just happened up in LA, and the county of LA or the city of LA have put in some new rules and regulations for the landlords. So you have to keep up to date with these things when you are a landlord, which are good things because you're keeping in track, and that's part of doing business. Nothing is free. You got to know what you're doing, and you got to stay up to date. And you can always talk to your property management company or your realtor who can keep you up to date if you have not kept up to date. So just a heads up on that. So talking about the steps: finalizing loan, signing documents, paying your closing cost, all that takes happens whether through escrow, or some of you in the East Coast or mid states have these attorneys that help you. So assuming all that goes along, after the closing, you officially own the property, and you can begin renovations if you feel they are needed. If the renovations are needed, something was not working, let's the AC was not working, and the seller did not want to fix it because you got a good price on it, have it fixed before the tenant's moving. If you want to change the flooring, depending on how old the property is, what kind of tenants do you want. I have a client that I've sold him 2 or 3 properties, and every time he buys the properties, he changes the carpet, paints the house, and puts in new or repairs all the appliances, because he said, I'd rather fix it now when it's vacant and have it all done, then after 6 months he calls and say a dishwasher is not working, or there's a stain in the carpet. So he does not like to do piecework. He does it all up front one time, and then it's done. So when the tenant moves in, most of his tenants stay there for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. They never move out, because this landlord always takes care of his tenants first, but he wants to do all the work up front. So you want to do all these things up front, if of course you have the money to do it. If you're stretching and just barely brought the money in, where you did not have enough down payment, you actually borrowed from friends and family, you may not have money to change the carpet and paint, or the property was in good condition and you just want to shampoo or clean or touch up paint, that is fine as well. Like I said, each one has their own specific reasons or factors of why they want to do things or not do things. But I'm just giving you ideas as a first time renter, home rental buyer, what things you want to keep in mind, because I've sold homes with people who stretch or just barely make the 10% and bought homes. This happened 10 years ago, not any time lately, because now you have to put 20, 30% down. And I've got clients who have lots of money and they put 20, 30% down and keep buying more properties and keep fixing up this property. So there's different levels of first time um, rental buyers, and the first time becomes second, third, fourth time buyers, because they're making money. They know the rewards of owning rental properties. So once your escrow closes, the next thing you want to do, in fact, just be very prepared that as soon as you close escrow, you have marketing in place. And of course, you're not supposed to market a property until you own it. So you cannot pre-market a property. At least in California, I've been told that it's not legal to start looking for a rental property, and you cannot advertise because you really don't own the property. So you can't really advertise for it. So be forewarned, check your regular rules and regulations. So start marketing the properties, or you can have your realtor find a renter for you if you don't have the time, because you have to advertise it, you have to check the credit, you have to check the work history. It is a lot of work, especially in California. Once we find a renter, there's a lot of disclosures, tons and tons of disclosures. So if you don't want to do all those paperwork, leave it to your realtor. Let him or her do all the paperwork. Let him or her do all the screenings. But at the end of the day, you may want to talk to the tenants and feel comfortable with the tenants. And if you feel that they're qualified, they have good income, they're going to be clean, and you're going to think that they're going to be clean and keep the place okay. It's a gut feeling. At the end of the day, when you rent it out, it's a gut feeling. I've been selling rental properties for years and years, for the last 25 years, sold many rental properties, found many renters in there, and we have multiple applications in there. And we have, from 10-15 applications, we narrow down to 2 or 3. And then end of the day, it's a gut feeling. Who do you feel comfortable with? And so far, knock on wood, we haven't had any issues with all these properties that we've rented. So at the end of the day, it's a gut feeling. Do you feel comfortable with this tenant? Do you feel comfortable giving it out? Do you feel comfortable, etc.? You also want to check if they have any pets. You may want to allow pets. You may not want to allow pets. The other thing you want to do when you do rent out or say no to somebody, if they have pets which are guide dogs or guide pets, you cannot say no. Some of the tenants may have Section 8, where the government helps them pay for the rent. And if they say, hey, I have a Section 8, do you allow Section 8? Don't say no, because it's legally not legal to say no. You have to reason to say no. So be careful when you say somebody no or yes, and why you're not going to rent them. And again, this is when a professional realtor who knows your local market comes in handy, because each state has their own rules and regulations, and some of the cities, as I mentioned earlier, have rules and regulations as well. Okay, so I'm just curious to see who is excited to start buying their rental income property purchase. And by that, I don't mean let's go out and see homes tomorrow. Are you ready to talk to a lender? Are you ready to make the commitment, not only to buy the property, but start with, hey, how much time do I need to buy a rental property? I'm going to need 5% down, 10% down, 20% down. In my area, homes are selling for $300,000. So if I put 20% down, I need $60,000 down payment. How soon can I collect? Are you committed to have that money in 6 months or 6 years? Start saving right now. So are you committed? Are you committed to buy? Are you committed to be a landlord? And if a situation comes up, will you take that call at 11 o'clock when he says, oh, I'm out of tissue papers, and then have it delivered by Uber or whatever? So be prepared. It's a commitment, but it's a great commitment. One of the things I did not mention about buying rental property is that in the long run, you cannot go wrong. And what I mean by that, and I should have mentioned that up front, but I'm going to talk about it right now, is that when you buy a rental property, and we all stretch, most of the buyers and most of the rental properties that I've sold, they all stretch to collect the down payment and to barely qualify and to barely have the enough income to be positive cash flow. But one thing's for sure, the advantage, no matter what price you buy, you may be asking the question, hey, prices are at sky high right now. Is it a good time to buy? Interest rates are at 7%. Is it a good time to buy? The question, it's not the right time to buy. The question is, are you ready to buy even at the current interest rates, even at the current house price? Because if you are buying it for long term, want to keep the property for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, I can assure you and guarantee you several things that will happen. Number one, immediately you get write-offs. So that's a big advantage. When you have a rental property, you can depreciate, and you can depreciate usually in 27 years, but you can talk to your accountant. I'm not an accountant. You can depreciate on an accelerated level, which we call a 7-year depreciation. So if you're making good money and want tax write-offs, depreciation is one way to go. Another thing. The second thing is, when your tenant is paying you the rent, guess what? The tenant is paying your mortgage. That's where the richness comes in, the wealth comes in, that you're not paying the mortgage. All you did was pay the down payment. The rest is paid by the tenant. And that's the beauty, that's the secret, that's where the wealth building is. Most rich people buy because they use OPM, and I don't mean the drugs. They use other people's money. They buy rental properties, the tenants pay for the mortgage. They take tax advantage, they take depreciation. But there's another factor why you want to buy. Let's say you're just breaking even, you have 2000 a month mortgage and you're barely getting 2000 a month rent, which is okay. Yeah, you're getting tax write-off. You don't need tax write-off. You don't make a lot of money, just enough, and you have enough tax write-offs. Fine. But the advantage is if you keep the property, on average, a single family home has appreciated 4% per year. So if you bought a property for $400,000 today, and I know it's high, you're buying at peak, and at 7%, it's at peak. No matter what, if you wait 10, 20 years, that property will double or triple in 30 years. And that's another advantage. So let me give you a scenario. You're buying a $400,000 property and scratching your head and saying, oh my God, I'm paying a $400,000 property. It's peak price and I'm paying 7%. Okay. And you're frustrated, but don't be frustrated, because after 30 years, if you keep it for 30 years and you rent it for 30 years, and I'm just giving you an example, how you have to think about properties is that you did not pay the mortgage for 30 years. Your tenant paid your mortgage, maybe several tenants, not one tenant. So you put your down payment and all the mortgage payments were paid by your tenants, right? That is advantage number one. But did you know that by the time 30 years come, you'll probably have white hair like I do, but that's okay. But the property you bought for $400,000 will probably be worth 800,000 or 1.2 million. So you see the power of compounding, the appreciation every year. The property is going to be worth 1.2, it's going to be paid off, and all you did was pay the down payment. Where can you put 60,000 down, or let's say on a $400,000 property you put 80,000 down and it's worth $1.2 million? Pretty much guarantee. That's the beauty of owning a rental property. So if you get anything from this chatter that I'm making, and I think I'm talking a lot because usually I have a guest, but I don't have a guest today because I thought this is very important to put my points across. So I want to bring this out. If you get anything from it, is that play the rule of appreciation and play the rule of tenants paying your mortgage. If you can understand that, then you should not worry, or you should not think about, should I buy now or should I wait for 5 years? That should not be a question. You should jump on it and go buy a property. Yes, it's high prices. Yes, it's high interest rate. But if you look 10 years down up the road, 20 years up the road, you'll be a guaranteed winner. So, So anyway, I'm going to stop at that as far as the processes goes. I hope you understand the process is very easy. It's just buying another house, but you're not buying it for yourself, but it's buying for rental. The question comes up many times. I just want to touch on a few common questions that come up. Is that, what if I have a bad credit? Well, if you have bad credit, that's why you need to start talking to lenders, and they will refer you to credit repair companies, or you can get hard money loans, you can get private financing, you can get seller financing. But the best thing is get your credit fixed up. Take 3 months, 4 months, 5 months and fix up your credit, whatever it takes. Should you buy a house in your name or under an LLC? That's a good question. When I bought my property, I bought it under an S corporation, but I won't answer that question because I'm not an accountant and it's beyond the scope of this conversation. But that question comes up quite often and it has a big impact on your taxes and liability, but I'll leave it at that. So there is advantages of putting a property in an S corporation or an LLC versus leaving it on Mike Patel. But I'll leave that question for you to talk to your accountant. The other question that we get is, can I buy out of state? And is it better to buy out of state? And I always say, if you're in California and if you're looking for positive cash flow, then it's better to buy in Arizona or Texas or Nevada or North Carolina. Yes, absolutely. You can buy properties in out of state, but again, talk to your accountant, because if you have income coming from other states, like if I buy a property in Arizona and my money is income is in Arizona, my filings may be different. I don't want to go there because it's an accounting question, but absolutely you can buy properties out of state, and you can buy one in Texas and one in Arizona and one in Utah, wherever you want to buy. This is a very important question, and I've used this many times to buy rental properties. One of the questions I get is, Mike, where the heck do these guys get money? I got news for you. They use their home equity. I'll give you an example. Let's say I sold a client of mine a house 10 years ago in Anaheim Hills, let's say, because I live in Anaheim Hills, for, let's say, at that time for $600,000 10 years ago. I can assure you that that property today is worth $1 million. So this client has a $400,000 equity, actually $500,000, because in 10 years he's probably paid $100,000 in principal. So let's say the house appreciated $400,000. This homeowner can pull $100,000 out or $200,000 out of that house, which is called the home equity line of credit, take $100,000 and go buy a property in Arizona as a 20% down or 25% down. So a lot of people buy this, then they wait 5 years and pull the equity out of that property in Arizona or Texas and buy another one. So a lot of the properties, in fact, I know a lot of people who own commercial property, they use equity all day long. What they do is they buy a commercial property, renovate it, increases the rent, so that it increases the value, because remember, it's GRM, gross rent multiplier. The higher your rent, the more valuable your property is. So they pull out money from the commercial property and go buy another property. That's how you buy. So that is leveraging. And guess what? None of the money came out of your pocket. It came out of the house. And guess what? You might say, wait, if I borrow $100,000, I'm going to have a payment. That's okay, because you're going to increase your rent. And as days go by, as your property value went up, your rents are going up. So if you pull out $100,000 and you're paying $500 extra, I'm sure your rent can go up over the years higher. So you're still breaking even and not going negative. So that's another thing. The next question, very common question, is how do I avoid overpaying a property? That's where your lender comes in. You want the best rate and best terms, but more than that, you want a realtor on your side who will do the research for you, the calculations for you. So before they even show you the property, they're going to look at the price that you can probably buy the property. Let's say your payment is going to be $2,500. He or she is going to make sure that you get at least $2,500 a month in income. And that's very key before you even open escrow, before you even make an offer. You want to make sure that when you buy the property, you're going to be at least breaking even. And then what are your chances are that the rents will keep going up? But in this market, the rents have been going up and up and up 3 to 4 to 5% per year for the last 10 years. Just like home prices have gone up anywhere from 3 to 8% per year, depending on your area. So those are great questions, very common questions, but those are questions that you need to know. So I wanted to address them. So the thing is about real estate is, one of the secrets about real estate is that the sooner you buy, the sooner you pay off your mortgage, and the sooner you start your 30-year clocks. Most homes are bought on 30-year mortgages. So the earlier you buy, let's say you buy today, you have 30 years when your mortgage will pay off, and you start appreciating at 4% per year. Of course, that's an average. Maybe there's some years it may go down, but on average it goes up. So I always tell my clients, when they ask me when's a good time to buy, the first thing I say, the good time to buy is when you are ready, willing, and able to buy. Do you have the down payment? Do you have the good credit score? Do you have the income to qualify? So that's number one. Then don't worry about the prices. Don't worry about the interest rate, because you should worry about the 30 years. Pay off in 30 years. Start the clock now. Imagine I'm 50 years old and I buy a house when I'm 50. So by the time I'm 80, the mortgage is going to be paid off. But imagine you buy a house when you were 30, then you pay off the house at 60. Or imagine you buy a house when you're 60, you're going to pay it off at 90. So the thing about real estate is time is on your side. Time is always on your side. So the earlier you start that clock, the better off you are. So I always say that, and most people don't think about the time clock of your 30-year mortgage. And the second time clock is your appreciation of 30 years. You want to get that 4% appreciating right away. So if you are ready, willing, and able to buy, pull the trigger. That's what I say. So one thing I wanted to mention is that if you want a checklist or some information, put in the comments checklist, and I'll send you a checklist on some of the things you have to buy or things you have to consider when buying a property. So mention checklist maybe, or send me a direct message with your email or a phone number, and I'll text you the checklist. So anyway, I hope that what I presented to you is of value to you. I hope that you will use it. Anytime is a good time to buy a rental property, as long as you are ready, willing, and able to buy. You have the funds, you have the score, you have the commitment, and the motivation to buy. The last thing you want to do is, if you are ready to buy, if you have the qualification, if you have the down payment, the only thing I say is don't chase the market. Don't say, you know what, I'm going to wait 6 months when the rates drop, or I'm going to wait till next year because the prices are going to drop. Well, guess what? I've been hearing that for the last 4 years, 5 years, that prices are going to drop, interest rates are going to drop. And guess what? They have not. So, if anything, of all the things, don't chase the market, because you don't know when it's going to drop. Who knows? What makes you an expert that is going to drop? And let's say you are right that, hey, the interest rate dropped in 6 months and the home prices dropped in 6 months. But let's say you got laid off. I just heard in the news today that a company called Joann's, he's been around for years and years and years, is going bankrupt. Well, it's gone bankrupt already twice, but it's going to close the chapter. And I think they're going to lay off 18,000 workers. So what if you waited 6 months or a year, and guess what? Prices dropped, interest rates dropped, but you or your family or your spouse or somebody lost a job or have a medical issue, and now you can qualify. So it doesn't work that way. You buy when you are ready, willing, and able to buy. So on that note, wanted to find out, if you are watching this till the end. A lot of people don't watch till the end, but if you're watching still, what was the most helpful part of this live stream? Please drop a comment. I would like to find out and improve my comments next time I have a live stream like this. And then if you want to book a call with me or get more resources, I'll have a link below. Just fill it out, and I'll be glad to answer any questions myself, specific questions, or refer to you to an accountant or a lender or a realtor in your neighborhood. So I wanted to put it out there. So do make comments. I do have these live every Monday at 4:30, and I focus on investment properties or anything to do with sellers, homeowners, and home sellers. So if you want to hear about a certain topic, drop a comment or email me on what topic you would like to talk, because I always think about what's best for my viewers. Next week, I'm most likely going to be doing this talk on home staging, whether you're selling your home or not, how to stage your home for your own benefit. Your house may be decluttered. So how does staging help, especially if you're selling? So I'm talking to a professional stager, and if she's available at 4:30, I'm going to have her as my guest. If not, I'll let you know at least a day or 2 days ahead. Keep an eye on my channel, and I will make sure that I have a great topic. So I do come up with topics based on what our viewers want, and I'll be talking about that. The other topics I have in mind is also how to buy with different kind of loans. 3%. I did not talk about loans today because I'm not a lender, but what are the advantage of getting a house with a 3.5% down, which is the FHA loan, which is the Federal Housing Authority, where you can buy a house, owner occupied, of course, at 3.5% down. There is limits on how much you can buy depending on the county and the state. It varies on how much loan you can get. So you may wonder, should I get a FHA loan or should I get a conventional loan with a 5% down, or should I get a loan with 20% down? So I'm going to have a lender down the road and talk about specifics of what loan to apply, what's best for you in the state you're in. The other things I'm going to talk about is what type of homes to buy, or how to flip a property. Some people have equity, and I have a client right now. He's pulling out $800,000 because he want to buy a property, pay all cash, fix it up, and flip it. And we're looking for a property like that. But in California, in Southern California, it's becoming very difficult to find a property around $800,000 range to flip, because there's so many quote flippers out there, so many investors out there, because the market is hot. So even if you buy it $800,000 and fix it up for $100,000, you can sell that property for 1.1, 1.2, etc., and make money. But that's for advanced investors. They know what they're doing. They have a crew. They come in, they change the carpet, change the kitchens, change the bathrooms, do the gardening, the yard work, spend a good $100,000-$200,000 depending on what kind of property it is, and then flip it and make good amount of money. I have one investor that I work with, flips 3 or 4 properties a year, and makes a good amount of money. On one property, he took a loss though, but on average, he comes out way ahead. So I help him out a lot. So again, if you need help with these things, I'll be glad to refer you to. So thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you next Monday at 4:30 California time.